help us navigate today as we honor Bra Peter. Welcome to everybody who is here, family particularly. Speaking as someone who's been tasked by SANEF to be here, grateful that you allowed us the space as journalists to organize this and be able to say goodbye to Bra Peter. There are a few announcements. One, it's about where we are. This is Regina Mundi Church. We are in a church. It's not a year, two, or anywhere like that. It is the church. So let's keep that in mind in whatever we do, that the presence of a few people, the Magubane family, friends, and extended families, journalists, photographers, media veterans who are here, Mayor Minister Naledi Pando. I was just telling her that I just didn't bring the scarf, but I'm energized. We'll be watching tomorrow. It's important that it's us in the whole world who have taken that responsibility. Deputy Minister Mafu, Councillor and Mayor or Executive Mayor of Johannesburg, Tate Gwamanda. And then, of course, we have our host, Father Jeffrey Madondo. It is, right? Yeah. Thank you very much for allowing us to come back here, Father, to say farewell to Peter. This, I speak a language that is more understood by people who speak Sishona. Yeah, that is the song that we're supposed to get now.
See Jesus the praise this morning. He's so worthy.
Deputy Minister Mafu and Executive Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda, and also, of course, Ambassador Fikile Magubane. Your Excellency, we are very happy to have you in our midst today, and also Ndate Linda and Mayor Kate Magubane, who belong to the family. The reason why I do this, I think it's always important to know that the church has always collaborated with civil society and trying to assist to better the conditions of human beings, if not from a social level, but definitely from a spiritual. So when we come together, it is a beautiful thing, and we are very happy with this fusion of church and state coming together to celebrate a life. And I think we are very happy and honored to have you in our midst in this very precinct. Thank you very much. My task here is to try to bring a spiritual component to the life according to Matthew. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. Matthew 25, verses 31 to 46. At that time, Jesus said to his disciples, "When the Son of Man comes in glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate them one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep at his right hand, but the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, O blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I say to you, as you did it.'" Dear sisters and brothers in Christ, the best way to reflect on the life from a theological viewpoint of Dr. Magubane is to just look around us. I have never seen an occasion that has as many cameras as this one. Outside, everywhere and everywhere. And it reflects his legacy and his life. But also maybe to reflect better on his life, it is important to look at the technology when he began his vocation or ministry as a journalist. Oftentimes, this is now a digital era and everything is digitalized. But I suppose when he began, his ministry, there was a camera. He would take a shot, and then they would into a spool, and then from a spool, then they will take them somewhere to be developed, and then the real image of God in each person, in each event, and in each circumstance in which he found himself. God always hides himself behind certain events and activities and persons. So that is why we say we ourselves are created in the image and likeness of God. So in other words, we can say we are the negative of God. Those negatives that will then, when it's developed, then you'll see the full image as it comes out. How did he capture this? He tried to capture the hopes, the anguish, the joys, the optimism, the euphoria that characterized the children of God are spanning more than half a century. He tried to capture those images so that we ourselves can be able to see behind the image what he was really trying to portray to the world. That is why in the reality of South Africa and also its difficulties during the apartheid era and even beyond. So in a certain sense, I think that merits him to find himself here in this church, to be remembered in this context. I would want to believe there were several times in which he came to this very precinct in order to capture those images of Jesus Christ, who was suffering, who was poor, who was naked, who needed freedom. So to capture that vividly, the image of Christ, and then to be able to spare people to respond to that plight, I think it was very, very important. I think as we remember him today, one thing that I want to leave before you is to try to look into the journey which he undertook with his vocation, capturing different images of the history of this country, the colonial, the pre-colonial, colonial, freedom in the 94 and beyond, if we can call it the post-colonial, to look into all those and see the images. So we want to give thanks to God for his unique contribution in presenting the face of Christ, who was suffering. If one went outside to look at the inscriptions, Hector Peterson and everything, it speaks about those images of Jesus Christ who was suffering, and somebody took time to try to portray so that we ourselves can respond to that. I just want to end to say he has finished his role. He captured especially a very painful part of our history. It is important now for us to also begin to capture the images of the present day, our present day, and see who is Christ and how is he suffering and how best can we address to that. So I want to thank you for listening to me, and I just want to end by praying for his departed soul and for his family, but more importantly for the nation of South Africa. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this afternoon to reflect and to give thanks for a life well lived, for a ministry executed, for images portrayed.
Thank you, Father. That was item number 3 out of 23 items. So that one of the things that I forgot to say was that besides this being a church and the decorum and the toilets, we must be out of here by 5. Muruti Uchojwal. So it's almost 3. We did not bring that technology here today. When I stand up, the mic is off. So let me just say, as a way of introduction, I grew up in the rural areas of what was called the Northern Transvaal. It's an area called Njerele. The village is called Chabalobedzi. Now, newspapers didn't come there. At my home, there weren't even any books. Even a Bible wasn't there at my home. A friend of mine, Zebulon Mtabuli, his sister worked at a printing house. And somehow she would bring back all these magazines, True Africa with Samson and Batman, Chunky Charlie. I'm talking to old people here. Thrown into the sea, but in the next edition, you would find him standing up. And he had a jacket that could produce anything. She was a women's magazine. And she was very strong. She was kicking. Councillor Kabelo Gwamanda, Executive Mayor of the City of Joburg. You have your 3 minutes. If the speechwriter had done more than a good work, you're going to learn editing here today.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Unfortunately, I'm accustomed to that kind of technology. I was just a bit pleased that it was not present here. However, I will have to adhere to the rules as set out by the Program Director. I would first like to acknowledge you, Program Director, and I'd also like to acknowledge the members of the family, Peter Magubane. I would like to acknowledge the Minister, Dr. Naledi Pandor, and also acknowledge the Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Recreation. But before we did not achieve our freedom in South Africa in isolation of other partners. And by virtue of that, the city of Johannesburg stands with the decision of the country. And regardless of what transpires, we are reminded of a moment of pride in who we are. So I'd like to thank you, Minister, for having advocated and ensured that the South African government takes a position in the pages of history. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to further acknowledge the veteran journalists that are present here and veteran photographers. Amongst them including Pearl Lutuli, Ruth Mutau, and Sipiwe Mhlamli, to mention a few. We are gathered here today with heavy hearts to pay tribute. Peter Magubane, a luminary in the realm of photojournalism, transcended the role of a mere photographer. Born in 1932 in Ventersdorp, South Africa, he navigated the turbulent currents of his time, capturing the poignant moments that defined the struggle against apartheid. His lens became a powerful weapon to fight for justice, equality, human dignity, as he fearlessly documented the harsh realities faced by those oppressed. Magubane's work during the apartheid era and beyond serves as a powerful reminder of resilience and courage inherent in the fabric of our society. His lens bore witness to the trials and tribulation faced by our fellow citizens, challenging us to confront the injustices of the past and inspiring a collective commitment to build a more equitable city for residents of censorship and intimidation. But he refused to be silent. His photographs became windows into a world that needed to be seen, a world that demanded change. I understand that I have come to the end of my 3 minutes, but last, my closing remarks, Program Director, with utmost humility. The honor that has been bestowed upon me to address you in this, gathering gives me the courage to earn my place in society. Not by virtue of title, but through a meaningful contribution that I would take pride in as a South African citizen. I am fighting so that the youth of today can understand that the baton has been passed through to them. And with access to technology, I'm confident that if we can regroup and channel our efforts towards a more productive approach towards building a society that works, we as the city of Johannesburg first will thrive to be a world-class African city. Thank you very much, Program Director, and I appreciate the time that you've given me. Thank you very much.
Gumbi, who's flying our colors at the UN. Welcome. After Peter passed away, Kylie Thomas, who is a senior researcher and senior lecturer at the University of Cork, and is head of the Institute for War, Holocaust, and Genocide Studies. Quite interesting, the word genocide these days. In an article in the African Mirror, wrote the following about Bra Peter. Peter, a courageous South African photographer whose images testify to both the iniquity of apartheid and the determination and devotion of those who brought about its demise. Magubane leaves behind a vast archive of extraordinary images, many of which continue to be the signature of some of the worst atrocities committed by the apartheid regime. We're now going to call Nkuli.
Good afternoon, Dumelang Sanbonani. I'm here as Ntatelen Khumalo spokesperson. I was requested by Nkululeko Nontate Khumalo to speak on their behalf. Ngiguno Mathemba Khumalo. To the family and all protocol observed, I'm here to narrate what Ntatelen has written down. I no longer remember much. It was a long time ago. I first encountered Peter Magubane when we worked for the same boss years ago in Johannesburg. Sometimes we will be driving separate cars from an assignment to the same building. He also worked as a driver for Drum. Although we had the same boss, we worked for 2 different magazines. He worked for Drum and I worked for the Golden City Post. They were both owned by Jim Bailey and operated in the same building, separated only by a wall. We will occasionally bump into each other when we covered stories in Everton and Sebokeng. At times, we will even compete with each other, but I was usually at an advantage because the post was weekly and his was monthly. Oh, as we used to say, a picture told 1,000 words. Peter was the first black photographer to win an award in South Africa. He was and remains an inspiration to many young photographers of his and this time. He has paved a way for and set an example of excellence for generations to come. My hope to them is that they learn from the likes of Peter Magubane, Alf Kumalo, Len Kumalo, Sam Nzima, and many veteran photographers and photojournalists who carried the camera as their weapon. If you think about it, a picture is what got us the liberation that we have today. We are where we are because pictures were leaked to the overseas shores. The last, I should say, I should speak for myself. The last I saw Undate Magubane was at his 90th birthday at his party when he allowed Ubabule and Kumalo to come through and see him. I should think that was a priceless moment for him and his family.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I was saying that that slideshow, it's a reality check that deserves of us to take a... President Mandela has run away. Yeah. Anyway, he had spoken about the bravery and the courage when he was presenting the award for meritorious courage. This was before Ikamanga and OR companions of OR Tambo, Baobab, and the rest. But he spoke about that. That citation speaks to the courage of Brapita. We're going to call David Meyer-Golan, who is going to read a tribute by David Tenley. After that, when he finishes,
good afternoon, to an underground meeting of the African National Congress leadership in Durban. In swept Mamuni Mandela with Peter Magubane to also document this historic meeting. As the leadership greeted Winnie, said to Peter and David, why don't you go for a walk and come back in an hour? Walking down the street, Peter turned and said, David, I've been watching you and you are one tough cookie. I want to be your friend. I shared how much that meant to me and then asked, Peter, what do I have to know to work in South Africa during these times? Peter said, David, it's very simple. Listen, don't talk. And if you need to talk, don't say anything. I smiled. This began our friendship and daily working relationship, and a mutual tenacity to use photography to scream about the injustices of apartheid. Over the next 2 years, Peter and I lived next to each other in the neighboring hotel rooms in the Carlton Hotel in downtown Johannesburg. It was Peter who first introduced me to the Mandela. It was Peter who first introduced me to the in the dining room of the Mandela Red Brick House in Orlando West.
think this is more like it. The next speaker is Spokes Mashiane, who is a veteran videographer and close friend of Dr. Magubane. As he comes, let me read to you a message from Kosini Nkosi. He worked with Brapita at the Rand Daily Mail. I had the ball and I hit the ball, and it happened to hit one of the security cluster members. In other words, the prison warder. They all rushed towards me. It was at this point that Peter jumped in and was in between me and the police. No one knew what to do. Peter said to the police, "Just touch him and you will never forget what is about to happen." The rest of the prisoners started making noise and the police were getting scared. We should not forget that Peter was always quiet and spoke little to very few people. That's why I think he was saying to the other guy, listen and don't talk. And if you talk, say nothing. Yeah, that's a classic. This is the man I worked with and taught me the skills in photojournalism. In every prison.
To 1994. I met Ubama Magubane 95, but I already knew him because my brother, Herbert Mabuza, who was late, was also a photographer. Now, angazi noma kuzobe kuyinhlonipho yini ukuthi masingasuku sonke and honor those journalists of that decade who risked their lives to record our struggle from 1984 to 94. We risked our lives. As I stand namanje, 109 of our colleagues have been killed in Gaza, recording their own liberation struggle. Abu Magubane Nati, we were there. We were there to record that liberation struggle. When I arrived, Abu Magubane did say, be brave, but also use your brain. Be brave, but also, there was a time at Katle home, for more than 3 months, one of our colleagues, Abdul Sharif, lost him. So Bagwe Tungiti, salute to Abu Magubane. Salute to all the veterans who are here. I can see most of them here. We risked our lives for this liberation struggle. Were it not for this media, the world would not have known what was going on in South Africa. There are things that you guys don't know because Tina, we're working for a foreign media. So we were smuggling our cassettes out of the country. The atrocities, the savagery of the racist regime, particularly during that so-called black-on-black violence, which was not black-on-black violence, we know now. Understand? That violence was sponsored by the very regime, and they called it black-on-black violence. Izinto sasizishoot at that time. You guys won't believe. That's why we had so much international solidarity, because the world knew more about our country than you guys. That's why the world supported our struggle and hastened our struggle. So
what he was saying is quite significant in that the internal dynamic of media and the external dynamic of media, the combination of those two produced the content that moved the world. I remember going to a hostel in Katlehong, Madala Hostel. And we had permission from not the superintendent of government, but from Babunkos. So we get there at the gate and we say, we've come to do a story about the conditions at the hostel. We are happy. So we say, well, Babunkos said this and that. So, okay. Iman Lab. This is a guy who, it's hot, but he's in an overcoat and he's bulging. You can see the stuff underneath. So he disappears and we start looking at each other. It's me, Joe Mdlela, and Mbuzeni Zulu. Something written by Joe Mdlela. And when I talk about Joe Mdlela, I remember I had just arrived from Limpopo, so this isiZulu language was not really very good with me. So we were going to the other Madala hostel in Alex. And as we were going around, we were being shown around by these IFP guys, and they kept saying, Udlame, Udlame, Udlame. So I'm thinking, yes, our guy. I said to Joe, ask them to take us to Udlame, man. Because that's the guy really who seems to be at the center of this whole thing. Yeah, and Joe looked at me and laughed and said, no, Udlame is violence. I said, oh, why didn't you tell me? Ruth?
And I was like, what happened? Because on Saturday you were okay. And he said, Ruthie, you see, I went to Togoza, the comrades, and they kicked the camera right here. I haven't even started working. And he tells me things like this. I said, I think I need to redirect what I'm here to do. And he was so calm, you know. So I came from the generation of the Bang Bang Club. And where I worked, there was this group called the Bang Bang Club. And when you go to the streets, doing some assignments, then I will meet Peter Magubane, or Spokes, Walter Dladla, you know, a lot of them, Sam CB. But I've always wanted to be next to Peter Magubane because he had order. And because I was the shortest, he said, Rute, so I'll stand there, probably sometimes with a step ladder, or, you know, but always very protective. In my journey, as I went through, Magubane will always say, you know, when you work, take your work into consideration, do projects, don't come and do work, go find stories that you'll do in a township. And when I looked at his books and some of his works, and I understood what he said about doing my own projects, and I started doing my own projects. But I think my few minutes here, I think few people wrote some tributes and then sent it to me. And I would like to say, you know, those tributes about Ntate Magubane. In 2019, I organized a project called the Living Legend. I had expected him to be one of those haughty celebrities who had hallowed fame to go to their head, but he was the exact opposite. From that first meeting, I was struck by his lack of arrogance. He treated everyone he encountered as a human being who was entitled to dignity. I noticed how gently he carried himself and how his eyes sparkled as his face pulled into that ready smile, often closely followed by a laugh. Uncle Peter never looked down on other people. Instead, his fallback position was to help to raise them up, particularly journalists. I think he saw us all as his children. That's very true. Most of us were a lot younger than he was. It seemed to me as he felt responsible for us juniors when we joined him in the field. The bravery that had seen him through the most horrendous experiences never flagged, and he often stood up for others at clear physical risk to himself. I know I was quickly confiscated long after our ups and downs as a nation, long after I had journalism for our challenges. Uncle Peter was still there, always ready to advise and to lend a helping hand necessary. He still moved quietly, almost obtrusively as he carried out whatever task he was scheduled. There was still no arrogance, just an air of him being comfortable in his own skin, confident that he had done his best. That is how I will always remember him. That's from Sam Twente. And also there's condolences from Louis Gab and some friends from the US. I see my tata is here, so I have to move. Thank you very much.
No, I think, Ruth, some of those messages can be sent to the family and they'll be read on Wednesday. I was about to read Joe Mdlela's message when I was dragged off into Dlame. The message from Joe Mdlela says, the angels must be stomping the ground. Joe Mdlela is now Father Mdlela, is a priest. So you should understand the context of this message. The angels must be stomping the ground with throaty joyfulness in a gig to welcome back the returning son of the soil back to the land of his Joe Mdlela. We're now going to get a message from Ndate Dentleketle, but I think it is going to be read by Reggie. Where are you, Reggie? Lucy is the executive director of the South African National Editors Forum, SANEF, which organized today's memorial.
Prof. As Prof said, the message is from Tate Dan. It is not possible for one person to fully present who Pedro was. He was different but consistent in one, the time of his introduction into photography. During the time he was associated to Black Age at the corner of Grace and Pritchard Streets in the early 50s. I was his best darkroom technician. That should always be the strong consideration. For instance, his daughter Fikile and the family has another experience of her father as a photojournalist who once dressed up as an old woman in one of his assignments during the Soweto riots and was arrested screaming at the apartheid police and so on. Fearless when facing opposition. That's Peter. Shalom. DTM Gakeke. Thanks, Prof.
Thanks, Reggie. We're going to have Glenda Daniels from SANEF to come and read the citation. Peter received the Net Nakasa Award for Courageous Journalism, and she's going to read that citation that explains why he was getting the Net Nakasa Award. The Net Nakasa Award that will be played of the event when Peter received that. I remember it very well because I was the acting executive director of SANEF at the time, and I had to put all of that together. And
Got us when we were covering funerals. At one of those funerals, my foot got stuck nearly in a grave, and everyone scattered when the police shot rubber bullets and tear gas, part of Ruthie's Bang Bang Club generation that I come from. And of course, everyone had to run to protect themselves. And as everyone left, as I was on the ground near a grave, it was Peter Magubane who spotted me and turned around with their car, picked me up and said, "You need to go home and have a bath," when I said I need to go back to the newsroom and file my story. SANEF citation for the Nat Nakasa Award for Courage and Integrity in Journalism. The world remembers Sam Nzima's iconic photograph of Hector Peterson carried to a car after he was shot. I think the sound's gone. After he was shot on June 16th, 1976, when the Soweto uprisings erupted. However, if you turn your attention to the events of that day, you will quickly find the work of other photographers just as eloquently. People like Moffat Zungu, Alf Kumalo, Mike Mzeleni, Dan Klein humiliated by a dog of a child laborer, or the charmingly innocent white child sitting on a Europeans-only bench, with her black nanny kneeling behind her. Our winner has relentlessly pursued and captured the truth with his lens that he gave to the world. The winner was born in Fetus, a vibrant suburb in Braamfontein Station, where black, indigenous Africans, Indians, coloreds, and whites lived as neighbors. He grew up in Soweto, another suburb that was later demolished by the National Party government, which forcibly separated the races and their abodes. He started out taking photos with a small box camera and was ultimately employed by Drum in 1954. As happened to all the good storytellers of the time, our winner fell foul of the law, first with small incidents when he defied policemen who wanted to stop him from capturing the truth with his camera. Stories about burying his camera in a loaf of bread or in an empty carton of milk to get the clandestine picture. Fitting also because he was one of only a handful of South Africans who saw Nat Nakasa in New York before his death. Our winner is Dr. Peter Magubane, photographer par excellence.
Gauteng convener for SANEF.
This is so special. It's more special than anything else because there's nothing like recognition from your peers.
Veteran SABC journalist and founding member of the South African National Editors Forum, Judy Sanderson, received the Sanef Rostley Award. The award is presented to a member for extraordinary commitment to work towards the achievement of Sanef's goals.
I think
The Net Nakasa Awards. Better known as Nathaniel Ndazana Nakasa, the South African journalist was awarded a Nieman Fellowship in 1964 to study journalism at Harvard College in America. But the apartheid government denied him a passport. He was forced to leave the country on an exit permit. And 51 years on, journalists who've shown integrity in their profession continue to be honored in his name. Peter Magubane is the 20th. Magubane reminisced.
I was crying inside, but I said to myself, this should be the happiest moment in my life to get this kind of award. I said, this is the
I think we nearly committed an injustice by drowning out Peter's voice. Thank you for replaying that. We're now going to call Pearl Lutuli, who, together with Gabu Tugwana, have penned a tribute that, even though it's by two people, will still stick to the 3 minutes rule.
I'm going to take some of the time that you have been taking from us. May I acknowledge, I heard that Sis Zanele was here, and Minister running out. I managed to get out, and I remember seeing Peter Magubane standing on top of the car, clicking away, but he managed to signal to me that I should go into the car where he was standing. And so we are here today, and I'm in church again, and I would like to quote a scripture, Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. This is a triumphant conviction of a dying follower of Christ. And to me, this Bible verse aptly applies to Peter Magubane. The struggle is finally over for him. He finished his race and he fought a good fight. May his soul rest in peace. Peter Magubane was a legend. In his tribute for this amazing son of the soil, Matata Tsedu wrote, Magubane was a true revolutionary who fought for freedom, a freedom fighter who used his camera as his AK-47. This made me as their AK-47s to fight by writing and exposing the evil that was apartheid to the rest of the world. They sacrificed their lives, they dodged bullets, and made sure they wrote about the daily struggles of the people and covered every atrocity meted out against the people of this country. Many got detained and banished as a result, but they were relentless in their kind of fight. Peter Magubane was part of this lot. So, what makes him more deserving than others to be called a freedom fighter who uses his tool of trade, the camera, to fight against apartheid? Why do I call him a legend? When I met Peter for the first time, after knowing so much about him from reading the papers, this was in 1974 when I started working as a journalist. He worked for the Rand Daily Mail while I worked for the world newspapers. He was already a legend in my book by then, but the world over. Peter covered most of the political rallies and all the uprisings in the country in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. He made his presence felt by everyone, from ordinary people to the most highly ranked leaders in the ANC, PAC, AZAPO, and all other political formations in the country. And of course, the leadership of the apartheid government. They all knew him too well. In all probabilities, Peter might never have formally joined any of the political formations, but his presence in every one of them was always felt. He might not have said a word in these meetings and rallies that he attended, except observe and click away his camera. But he spoke louder than everyone else through the kind of pictures for a different angle from everyone else, including taking pictures through a rearview mirror, standing on dustbins and on rooftops. Once he found his angle or a picture that would make the front page, through his pictures, he managed to capture the full story and in an artistic way. He was a historian. Through his pictures and the 17 books he authored, he managed to document the history of our country and some of our people. He had a curious mind and very good instincts. He could smell a good picture miles away, and once he got the whiff, he was relentless in capturing it the way he smelled it. He was an author. His books on the Bantwane people, Africa's undiscovered people, Amandebele, the vanishing cultures of South Africa, are not only works of art that give us a different perspective of the beauty of South Africa and its people and what we have been robbed of but has documented the history of the people of South Africa. He was a marketer through his books, Amandebele. He helped expose the beauty of the Amandebele and their unique artwork, as Maud Mutanyane put it. And as we say, ulifezile uqatso lwakhe. May his enduring and relentless spirit rest in peace. Condolences, Figile and your family, and the whole Magubane clan in South Africa that has lost a son. Peter Magubane is now resting, but you are fortunate enough because he has left you with a beautiful legacy. I thank you.
do to each other. During the 40 plus years I knew Peter, when he photographed for me at Time magazine, he recorded much violence as people fought for their rights and independence. But one story comes back to me when I think of Peter's passion. In 1988, he suggested an overlooked story about the young boys in Soweto, often homeless, who carried the burden of delivering heavy sacks of coal to customers. Mostly miserably depressed and sometimes sniffing glue, they persevered, hoping for better lives. Peter wanted the world to know, in the pages of Time magazine, his compassion for people was paramount. This story I will never ever forget. At the end of the year 2018, I met another colleague, also a witness with camera like Peter, Shahidul Alam, a fearless fighter for people's rights, imprisoned in his native Bangladesh that autumn. When I asked Peter what his message was for Shahidul, he
Dumelang. My name is Sipiwe Mhlambi. I'm a visual storyteller. I'm a photographer. I'm a prodigy of greatness. I'm a prodigy of my mentor, my teacher, Peter Magubane. I didn't wish to read a speech. I wanted to speak from the heart, but there's so much that I can talk about Peter. And it means a lot to me because he's that symbol of success as far as I'm concerned. I met Peter I used to call him Baba. But I met him in 1990 at Javelin Amphitheater. I think I saw one of the pictures that were shown here during that time. I was nobody. At the time, I was just a kid with no family or relatives, looming around the streets, dusty streets of Soweto, looking for hope. I own nothing under my name, absolutely nothing. But I had a camera, and a camera that was given events. I met Abu Korimo Raba there, with Steve Kekana there, with PJ Powers, Bumzwa Kembuli, all of those. And as I frequent to go to that place, and then one day there was a mass rally. A lot of comrades had been killed, so was that funeral. Somebody did say they're here because the old school guys, well, I'm not that old. I'm only 56. I met Peter when I was 21. So I gained a lot from him. I ran out of film. It was a similar camera to that, so I'm going to dedicate it to him. And I'm going to donate that camera to the family of Peter Magubane. As I was in there, I ran out of film, and I looked at a group of journalists with cameras like that, and they were very intimidating. But I was afraid to approach any of them. But I saw this man with gray hair. He looked like an angel. He looked like someone that I can talk to. And I approached him, and I said, Baba, ngicela ungiphi film. Approached him, and I said, Baba, ngicela, are you a journalist? I said, no, I'm not a journalist, but I want to be a journalist. But now, above all of that, I would always like to say to people that even the generation after us, simplicity, looking up to people, and just being respectful, it goes a long way. When there's no hope, when somebody gives you that. But Peter did not give me a film, but he gave me a life lesson. He gave me hope. My life changed. You can just imagine from 1990 up to today, I have worked in every newsroom you can imagine. I know most of you here. We've been colleagues. I have my work that is traveling all over the world. But just because of one approach, with the right time, right place, right manners, because he gave me that symbol. He just simplified what greatness is. His conduct, his outlook, he talked less. He would always send you to do things, but he wants to critique you on what you are doing, not what you are saying. So if you're going to sweet talk him, Peter, I'm good at that, I'm good at that, he says, no, let me see your picture. Let me see your last picture you shot. Don't edit it. We couldn't edit at the time. But that film that he gave me, I have a contact sheet at home. It means a lot to me. I framed it, and that's all I have. And I'll pass it on to my children as they grow. Thank you very much.
Lifetime Achiever Award. And all these big guys were there. And Denzel stood to speak. And it could have been Spiwe. Because he said he was a nobody. He found Sydney at a shop and said, I want to act like you. And Sydney gave him time. And Denzel was saying, I'm where I am today because Sydney, not knowing me, gave me time. And it's about giving people time. We're now going to call Deputy Minister Notawe Mafu. She's the Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. When she finishes, we'll have a musical tribute by Prince Lingwasa, who is a jazz trumpeter. I will not come back here to call it.
Particularly the legends. Some of them have been mentioned before me. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to take this moment to actually greet you all and thank you for being here to celebrate the life of this photographer of note. An African patriot who told the world about the atrocities of apartheid, stayed through his lessons, as everybody has been saying. In pictures, the pain that the apartheid state inflicted in our people will be told in eternity. Your love, Dr. Magubane, for your country is unparalleled. When the history books are relating to this form of art, let it be said that truly we once walked amongst the great, amongst the giants, and you are that giant. And you are that giant. Talents combined with hard work, perseverance, and dedication have taken this form of art to higher levels. Dr. Magubane of the 1976 June 16 student uprising and Nelson Mandela capture outside Howick in KwaZulu-Natal. He covered the Rivonia trial, which was the watershed moment in the resistance against apartheid. The burning of the ANC, the Sharpeville riots, and the massacre that followed those riots. Steve Biko and the Black Consciousness Movement and the Soweto uprising. His work throughout his life confirms to me that what Ms. Susan Sontang had said about the work of photography in her essay, titled On Photography, which he penned in 1977. And I quote here, "A photography is not just the result, an encounter between an event and a photographer. Picture taking is an event in itself, and one with ever more peremptory rights to interfere with, to invade, to ignore whatever is going on. Our very sense of the situation is now articulated by the camera's interventions. The omnipresence of the cameras persuasively suggests that time world, the image world that bids to outlast us all," close quote. These words echoed here defines Dr. Peter Magubane's lifetime effort and his contribution to humanity. In the process of discharging his responsibility to humanity, he has personally paid a heavy price. Amongst the pains he endured was, of course, to be detained in solitary confinement, as it has been said, petrol bombing of his family house, and banning orders that followed that aimed at curtailing his work, but he refused to bow down. And therefore, we are at this point now in our country, the point that we are going to be celebrating 30 years of democracy. And our democratic project would not have been complete, and we dare not forget where it all started and how long and what it took to achieve it. Part of taking that journey back to realize where we are going means we must make stops here to those that played a critical role.
Ntate Lengwasa. Peter worked a lot. Magubane. We're almost there. We are almost there. We're left with 2 items. After this, we might just make our 5 o'clock.
Good afternoon. Glad to meet you. It humbles me to see you here, most especially being visited by ministers like Mrs. Pando and the other ministers of nations, you know. But by God's grace, you are here. So Peter brought me up. I first met him in the early 60s. But before I met him, he once came to my home in Western Native Township when they were investigating the death of the late Mr. Henry Ngomalo. But I didn't see him in that night. So I met him 3 years later when we arrived in Deep Roof. His mother was still alive. And then during the early 60s, he brought us up. I went to college. And then in the late 60s, he entertained musicians and sports. In the mid-70s, Peter, his house was burned by Shisimbiage. It was scorched, and then my late younger sister picked up an SAP bullet, meaning that he was about to be killed. But by God's grace, God stretched his arm and intervened. God stretched his arm and intervened. But Nakuaniwe Eko still, so we used to look after his house, you know, as neighbors. And we did not fear, even if when the security branch came, we were brave enough to say, no, this is our brother, he brought us up. You know? As time went on, Peter, the young veterans, for instance, I'll cut my story short. The very sons who were shot and killed in Silverton are our neighbors. That's when Peter had a beautiful car, Mercury, where the students used to hide their literature in his car, and the Mercury, where the students used to, until time came in 1976 for the release of other political prisoners. But all in all, I thank him because but he was very strict and very disciplined. Even when he started writing his other 3 books, unfortunately, I hardly have a copy saying what is Zaki. But all in all, he brought me up, he looked after us, all of us in that neighborhood, and of course, other things as in Zil is Ninga Cool, some of his photos as Ecola. I saw most of his photos in the town. I asked him why his photos will be dark. What is it? It is because it's an eye that of a photo to be dark with that rich background and have a message. Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you.
Jehovah. Jesu ambona aba ansibula ampirisa oh ampa ori nekhoso auki khoso au ya jesu au ya jesu
Hello. There are people in the foyer. There are people in the foyer who are making noise. Hello. Okay. We're now going to hear messages from grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We're calling now Mpo and Becky, and when they finish, Ntokozo shall do, is it his piece? Ntokozo.
White hair. Yes, I said it, the white hair. Some say that was his signature. Some say it was claimed that it was because of his daily commitment to his artistry. I'm still not sure if it was a dye job or Mother Nature's grand display of his wisdom and enlightenment. Despite his worldwide escapades, this fantastic photographer kept all of us grounded, never taking us to his photo exhibition. Oh, the injustice of watching him on TV instead of jet setting. All right, I'll just repeat that. I think the mic went sweep. Despite his worldwide escapades, this fantastic photographer kept all of us grounded, never dragging us to his photo exhibitions. Oh, the injustice of having to watch him on TV instead of jet setting along him. But he had a trick up his sleeves for all his grandchildren. He taught us that diamond. He taught us that the globe like a precious cargo. And let's face it, big working again. All right, here's to you, Dr. Peter Magubane, for leaving behind not just snapshots of history, but a legacy of resilience, hard work, and yes, the unforgettable head of enlightened hair, rest in eternal humor and enlightenment. Magubane, Nkwamose, Stole, Klunemhlophe, Lalagash. All right, thank you guys.
He was 1 in a billion. And I say that with a capital B. Over the course of 2023, I had the privilege of attending 3 different occasions that got to celebrate my great-grandfather. I got to see him get his 8th honorary doctorate. I got to attend some of his amazing exhibitions. And I asked myself, how many times can one man be celebrated in the course of a year? I mean, this is a lot now. But that's what happens when you achieve greatness and you commit to hard work and dedication. I haven't even completed my undergrad and I'm watching this old man get his 8th honorary doctorate. What a man. And while I'm watching all of this happen in front of me, the only word I can think of is impact. The impact he has not only made on South Africa, but more importantly, his family. The most impactful thing he did for me was to leave behind my amazing grandmother, Peter Magubane, who is a testament and a symbol of his strength and the greatness that he embodied. The only memories I have of my Opa that stand out to me were from when I was very young. But there was one significant thing that he said to me that has stuck with me through all these years. He said to me, stand up straight because you are a king and never be afraid to believe in something. Now let me tell you something about that old man. He definitely believed in something.
Carol Laser says, my friend Peter was naughty with a great sense of humor. We worked together as photographer and journalist for so many years. Neither of us believed in rules, and it was always fun breaking them. For instance, when Peter was imprisoned at Moda Bay, I used to visit him with my toddler daughter Nikki, with little bunches in her hair. I reckon they wouldn't arrest me with her in tow. We'd bring a cake and carton of milk, which we had washed out thoroughly and filled with whiskey. This is in jail now. Both were shoved through the prison bars. The cake wasn't important, but the whiskey Peter enjoyed. Heroic and fearless, Peter taught me how to make the best of sometimes frightening situations. He was philosophical, kind, and always treated everyone he met with respect. I was once with an Afrikaans reporter in the car in Joburg. We stopped at a traffic light. Peter was walking past. Peter announced to me early in our relationship that he was my Zulu king. And I had to listen to him. Of course I didn't. I told him I already had my Jewish king, my husband, who I certainly didn't listen to. We laughed a lot. Of course, we were anguished at times. For years, his negatives and contact sheets were hidden in our attic. Today, like everyone who loved Peter, I'm heart-sore, but also grateful that we spent such interesting times in our South African history together. When I saw him a few years ago, we sat and giggled for 2 hours. Peter, okay, I should read this correctly. Peter, I reckon I'm going to join you one of these days. Not sure if it will be upstairs or downstairs, but we'll have a good laugh together. Much love, Carol. So this introduces Ndate Kabash to come and do the honors.
Attitude for what has happened here today. Ongomo. Thank you very much. Let me start with Isanef. When the news broke about the passing on Gababa, they quickly put their hands up and said, we would like to organize a memorial service. So SANEF has been very key to getting today to be what it is. We thank them very much for pulling the journalistic community together and making sure that they're all here to honor Peter Magubane. Secondly, I would like to thank the management of the parish, Regina Mundi, in particular Father Madondo, who opened for us earlier on today. They responded at very short notice when we are. They responded at very short notice, and it was indeed quite fitting with escort services and providing security, and then the caterers who will provide refreshments following the service. I must thank you, Program Director, for steering the ship this afternoon. When you said you had 23 items, I thought we'd finish at 6. So well done for getting us done by 5:20. But most of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time and being with us this afternoon. I think it means a lot to the family to see the support, and we really thank you. Sitinenze njalo nakwabanye. Now on to some announcements. Firstly, the funeral service will be held at Bryanston Methodist Church. It's located at 117 Grosvenor Road in Bryanston. This will be on Wednesday, the 10th of January, starting at 9 in the morning, sharp. Thereafter, the burial will take place. Places have been arranged to take any people who'd like to be part of this. They will leave the community hall at Zone.
Before you go, I know they said there's food, but let's just have some order, please. The last item is closure. If we have who can do the prayer. Oh, sorry. There's the click. Photographers, please come and do the thing.
Anyone with a camera? Well, I see a lot of guys have left. Okay. Those who have cameras right now, please remove your stick, remove your memory card, put it on manual focus. Thank you very much.
Father Dlumzela.
I'm a guest. Ah, me what? Oh, I'm too sedenta.